1st, it's New Year's Eve. Tomorrow, it's all about 2024. But before we flip the calendar, let's look back on 2023. We have seen many political firsts in the past 12 months. The first woman to be elected and then sworn in as governor of Massachusetts. The first Speaker of the House to be stripped of the gavel. What's ahead in the new year? Roundtable's here to break it down. Let's go on the record.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Welcome to OTR, everyone. I'm Ed Harding, along with News Center 5's political reporter Sharmit Sacchetti, and we're joined by familiar faces here, Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh, Republican political analyst Rob Gray, to talk about the big political stories that define 2023 and set up 24. And oh boy, there are a lot of them.
We have plenty to talk about. Let's start on Beacon Hill. Maura Healey, she was elected the first woman to hold the governor's office in state history. She has a Democratic supermajority behind her in the legislature. All of the constitutional offices are headed by Democrats, and yet it has not been easy. Marianne, does that surprise you?
Well, remember, Democrats have only had control of all three chambers, all three offices, once since 1990. So I feel like the training wheels will come off after this year. There was a little bumpy, things weren't easy, but Maura Healey got a lot done. I think looking forward, at some point, Ron Mariano won't be Speaker anymore. And I think the real transformation will come with Aaron Miklowitz becoming Speaker.
Do you believe that point is 2024?
It's possible. It's possible. We'll see. I mean, we had Mariano here a few months ago. He says otherwise, but we'll see. But whenever that happens, he's got a great relationship with Maura Healey. He can work with Karen Spilka, and he's got a terrific relationship with Michelle Wu. That combination of players could transform not only Boston, but the entire state and push us light years ahead, which we should be doing.
And worth mentioning, Mariano did not commit necessarily to serving a full term as Speaker. Rob, what do you think about this?
Well, I think a difference of opinion on Beacon Hill is good, and Marianne's right. For 24 of the last 32 years, before Maura Healey, we had two-party government because there were Republican governors for much of that time. So having some discussion, putting a little brake on some of these ideas is a good thing. On Maura Healey, I think what's unclear is she really going to have an aggressive agenda, or is she just going to be a manager of the incoming, pretty much like Charlie Baker was? And Charlie Baker was very successful and very popular doing that. That remains to be seen.
Well, so let's talk about what's on her plate. There's no issue that's been more daunting for the new governor than the migrant crisis. The state's emergency shelter system has required hundreds of millions in funding. It may take $1 billion more in the year ahead. Washington has offered only tepid relief. State Republicans even got some traction by pushing back. Rob, look in the crystal ball. What's going to happen here?
They're going to spend a lot of money to deal with it. And we've already seen some, clouds in terms of state revenues coming in. So when you talk about the migrant crisis costing $1 billion to deal with, that is very significant. But the legislature and Maura Healey, despite what I said about disagreement is good, they will agree to spend this money, and it's going to cost the taxpayers.
It's a staggering amount of money.
It is. I mean, first, there are three things Maura Healey has to deal with, right? She's trying to push the agenda she ran on. She's cleaning up after Charlie Baker in a bunch of places, especially the T. And then there are the surprises, like who knew the migrant crisis was coming, right? But she's managing the best she can. And the states have no choice but to try to fund this to be humane to the people who are here. They've come through here legally through asylum and other means. But the fact is, the answer to this problem resides in Washington, D.C.
All right. The governor did score a big win this year on tax relief. She did something her predecessor was not able to do. It includes help for seniors, renters, businesses, and families. Now, the governor says it makes the state more competitive, but with the cost of housing at record levels, how much does this really help, Marianne?
Look, it makes a difference, and it's an answer. It's not the answer. The answer comes beyond the tax cuts with more housing, more affordable housing, creating more housing, building more housing, repurposing
Something the governor's been pushing for.
Pushing really hard. And now you started to see towards the end of 2023, certainly going into 2024, looking at communities who aren't their zoning regulations. If you have property near the T, are you allowing multifamily, market price housing, those kinds of things? Which is a lot. And you can't build things overnight. So there are a bunch of answers here, and she's pursuing all of them.
What do you think, Rob?
I think what you have to remember is that this tax relief comes on top of a multi-billion-dollar tax increase passed at the ballot in 2022 that Maura Healey and the Democratic establishment supported. So I look at the tax relief as sort of bailing out the boat with a Dixie cup compared to, the flood of that tax increase in 2022. We already see people relocating to Florida and New Hampshire because of it.
Let's take a look at optics. The Governor Healey said that she would run a transparent office. Critics say that has not been the case. She no longer announces ahead of time, for example, when she is actually leaving the state. Marianne, is that concerning?
Well, she says it's a security issue, and I have every reason we should all believe that. Remember, a neo-Nazi group appeared outside her home on a Saturday chanting all kinds of things and always wear masks, so you can't really tell who they are. And I think given the day and age we live in, given the fact Maura Healey's the first woman elected governor of Massachusetts, given that she's gay, there are security concerns.
Rob?
I mean, let's go back, aside from not announcing that she's leaving the state, Freedom of Information Act. As a candidate, Maura Healey said the governor's office would be open to Freedom of Information Act and not exempt as it had been in the past. She's not responding to Freedom of Information
Remember,
Act
Governor,
I think
so
there's more she could be
I think
doing
there is
here.
more. And listen, other governors of both parties always announced when they were leaving the state. I don't think the security situation has changed versus right after 9/11. When Mitt Romney was governor or when Deval Patrick was governor after that. So I think it's just she knows she's not going to get scrutiny because media has been hollowed out on Beacon Hill, so she can get away with
But
it.
you can't say that in the age of Trump, where violence and the threats of violence are everywhere, and you have neo-Nazi groups crashing everything, going outside her home on a Saturday.
Governor Baker had someone walk into his house.
Okay, so there's your security threat, and he's
That's
a big
right,
guy.
but he announced when he's going out of state.
Yep.
It is a formal function.
Yep.
But Freedom of Information Act requests, Maura Healey has something to answer for there. The media should stay on her tail about that.
All right, let's head over to City Hall. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu set her sights on solving the crisis on Mass and Cass. And right now, that plan seems to be working. The tents and tarps have been cleared away. Shelter and services have been offered to people who need help. The mayor is moving ahead on plans to reopen the Long Island Treatment Center along with the bridge. Has she turned things around on this situation, Rob?
I mean, I give her credit for taking it on. It took a while. It seems to be effective so far, but winter is just arriving. This could be, whack-a-mole, where you deal with the issue in one area and it pops up in another area. So TBD, I think, is the answer.
What do you think, Marianne? Was she successful?
Well, we haven't talked about it in weeks. So that's the first proof right there. Look, she's done what her predecessor could not do. The bridge has been down for 10 years. She actually has moved and helped the vast majority of people who are living there have shelter now, have resources, have their possessions in storage and all that. And at the same time, trying to put a rehab campus together, building the bridge again and all that. That will take time, but lots of credit to her for tackling it.
It was out of her hands, but the mayor did have to deal with plenty of city council chaos in 2023. Voters took a corrective course in November by bouncing councilors Ricardo Arroyo and Kendra Lara for bad behavior, but the dysfunction certainly didn't help the mayor. As the former president of the city council, does the mayor give too much deference to the body with effectively little power, Marianne?
Well, she was a member of the city council. She was the president, too. So I think she gives them deference, but when after you try everything and it doesn't work, then you go do something else and you take action, voters understand that, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, very savvy of her to recruit a couple of candidates to the city council, endorse them, and made sure they won. That city council coming in tomorrow night will be much easier to work with, and the expected Boston City Council President Ruth C. Lejeune is an ally of hers too.
Rob?
I think what's savvy for Mayor Wu is that by promoting the city council and coverage of the city council, it makes her look moderate. Because, other than the city council in San Francisco, the Boston City Council is the platform for the craziest ideas in America. And normal people are opposed to it. When Michelle Wu opposes it, she looks good.
All right, let's call them unforced errors. There were a number of them involving the mayor in 2023. One was caught on camera. The mayor's detail, lights flashing, getting involved in a crash while on the way to an event. A recent report saying the BPD officer who was driving did contribute to the collision. There was also the email controversy over the invitation to a holiday party for, quote, electeds of color. Does the mayor have the people around her who are up to the task? Or, Rob, do you think this falls on her?
I mean, you're the mayor, you got elected, you own it. Same with the governor, same with the president. That being said, she doesn't have a lot of opposition. There's nobody revving up to run against her that I'm aware of that has a chance. so she can get away with some of these things.
What do you think, Marianne?
Well, everything we've already talked about, voters care much more about that than these two incidents. One, it was an accident. That's the reason there's a word accident. Two, the outrage machine against Michelle Wu was certainly behind the non-event, holding an event of elected officials of color, which has been going on for years, and then went up the food chain of hate in terms of different media outlets and all that and went national. That speaks volumes about the people who oppose her, not her.